When you look at the drivers of fintech adoption amongst financial institutions, there are a few different things on the table in terms of why they're so focused on fintech. Things like cost reduction, increasing consumer centricity in terms of what consumers want from financial institutions, and increasing regulation and responding to that. So there are loads of drivers out there for fintech adoption, so it's not going away. And really there's an opportunity for Ireland at the moment to stake a claim within the European and global context as a fintech hub, a place where there's a lot of innovation and a lot of fintech activity. When we look at it from a sort of a recent history perspective, we have a great record in terms of dealing with foreign direct investment and the benefits that it can bring. And when you look at the Irish landscape overall, we have a great, I suppose, crossroads of innovation between financial institutions and technology companies that are based in Dublin and across the country to an increasing degree. So we've a great history there in terms of being able to leverage off that, the FDI investment, and take it and develop an indigenous industry off the back of it as well. So really we've a great opportunity there at the moment to try and create that vibrant Irish ecosystem in the fintech space. In terms of challenges that we face, there are a few challenges out there. We have increasing, I suppose, competition on a global scale in terms of how we're perceived and who are the key fintech players. So you have jurisdictions like the US with East and West Coast activity in the fintech space, Singapore, and in an EU context, Luxembourg and the UK, and in particular London, all trying to stake a claim as a preeminent fintech location. So we have a lot of international competition, and also we've a challenge because of the pace of change in the industry overall. So if you look at the emerging technologies that are there, for example, in the payment space, is payments the best place to place a bet, or is payments actually sort of oversaturated already as an area of innovation, and should we be looking at different areas like robo-advice or blockchain? So trying to keep up with that pace of change and work out where to place your bet is another challenge that we face. From a skills perspective, I think that Ireland, across technology broadly, does face a skills shortage and a skills challenge. And if we look at the responses to that, they can take a couple of different forms in terms of the short term and the medium to long term. From a short term perspective, I think we'll be forced to look overseas and try and bring in skilled talent, and that's happening already in terms of we have a lot of people travelling from across Europe to relocate to Dublin. And I think to facilitate that, we need to look at a flexible and speedy work visa programme for people travelling from outside of the EU, and also potentially some further changes to our income tax regime to make Ireland an attractive place for them to move to and to live and work here. I think also as well we have an opportunity with the IFS 2020 strategy and the development of an IFS brand for Dublin and for Ireland as part of that, to try and package up and promote Ireland as a great place to live and work. I think in the longer term we need to be able to define what are the necessary skills that we need in the tech space and in fintech in particular, and for tech and fintech to come together and define those, and then go out and try and work with educational institutions, universities or other educational institutions to try and develop programs that will meet that demand over time. Yeah, in terms of supports for our own fintech startups, I think there have been some welcome things in the last 12 months. On the positive side, we've seen the formation of Fintech and Payments Association, which will be a great benefit to the industry in terms of giving the industry a voice with government and regulation. So that's been very helpful. I think the review of the IFS 2020 strategy and the fintech actions within that, again, has been helpful in trying to keep up government momentum in the space, and the work that EI and IDA are doing in the whole promoting Indigenous and FDI investment has been helpful as well. Also, the recent European Financial Forum in Dublin Castle in January, again, was good in terms of promoting Ireland as a fintech and financial services location. So some positives in the last 12 months. In terms of things that we need to focus on, I think there are challenges for us in terms of regulation, in terms of funding for startups and scaling companies, encouraging entrepreneurship, and encouraging incubation and acceleration, and the partnership between large-scale financial institutions and fintechs. And we have a lot to learn from what's happening internationally in that space. If you look at some of our closest competitors like the UK, they have a number of different actions that they've taken across those headings recently that we could potentially learn from. In the regulation space, Chancellor Osborne has said that he will issue 15 retail banking licenses to challenger banks before 2020. So that's quite a big statement by the UK in terms of trying to disrupt and look at banking in a different way. So that's something that potentially we could focus on here in terms of our response to regulation. On the funding and increasing entrepreneurship agenda, the UK have also looked at capital gains tax reliefs for entrepreneurs. So they have a £10 million lifetime capital gains tax exemption for entrepreneurs on gains from their own companies. And they've announced in the recent budget that they're going to extend that to to investors who invest into scaling companies. So that'll really promote their investment agenda broadly across the UK. That's a really interesting question in terms of the response we've seen to a recent PwC Global FinTech survey. We globally ran the survey in December of 2015 and January of 2016, and we'd over 500 respondents from financial services institutions and fintechs in 45 countries. One of the questions in the survey focused on the threats that companies felt from fintechs and emerging technologies. And over 83% of respondents indicated that they felt that a significant part of their business could be disrupted or taken away by a standalone fintech by 2020. We hope to launch our Irish slice of the survey data in April, so please keep an eye out for the Irish data in that respect, and we'll be launching that soon. But what was interesting on a global level was that fintech and disruption is really a key area of focus for C-suite executives, and the challenge for them is around how to identify what technologies and what companies can really make an impact on their business. And that's a challenge given that there's so much information out there at the moment. So we've been working with our clients using a couple of techniques and tools that we have in PwC to try and help them to deal with that. One of those is the De Novo strategic consulting tool, which takes a sort of a broad brush approach to trying to identify the technologies that can impact on different elements of financial services. And the other part of our consulting suite that knits nicely with that is our innovation workshop program, where we take financial institutions out to meet with fintech companies. So there's a version of it that runs in Silicon Valley in the US, where we take institutions and execs over there for an intensive 3-day program where they meet with fintechs to try and understand their technologies and come up with business use cases and proof of concepts for those technologies in their businesses. In terms of interaction with fintechs and trying to foster new technologies, there are probably a couple of challenges there. I suppose the first one is really how to engage with fintechs, and we've seen our clients take a few different approaches to that. One of them has been just to go out and buy the technology or buy the fintech itself, and to be honest with you, that's really fallen out of fashion recently, because our clients have found that when they bought the technology or bought the company, when they tried to integrate it into their existing larger scale institution, they really lost the innovation and they lost that piece of culture. And fair enough, they had the technology, but that was it, and things sort of withered away after that. So they've looked at different approaches off the back of that. So some clients have set up a venturing arm which goes out to invest in fintechs and tries to get close to them in that way. Others have set up bespoke smaller subsidiaries to interact with fintechs, so they're a subset of the larger organisation, and potentially that can sort of move into running an accelerator or an incubator for fintechs as part of that bespoke operation. And then some clients are just trying to take on the really big challenge of how to just develop an innovative culture within their own organisation, which can be a real challenge given the size and scale of some of those. What's worked well is probably a little bit of everything. So you take a little bit of all the pieces and try and put it together as best you can for your organisation. Once you've worked out how to do that, there are different operational challenges. So things like IT security, systems integration, regulation, data protection, all those types of issues. Trying to merge them together in an operational sense, again, can be a challenge. But I think if we look back to what are the drivers of fintech adoption, so the things like the cost control, greater access to data, transparency for customers, them feeling more in control of their own transactions, and greater speed to those transactions. There are loads of emerging technologies out there that can help with that. So if you look at technologies like blockchain in the transaction space in terms of increasing the speed of transactions and transparency, if you look at things like robo-advice, which will give customers a greater impact and greater control over their own investment decisions or their own purchasing decisions in areas like insurance. So there are loads of emerging technologies out there that will address the drivers of fintech adoption and consumer needs, and it's just really having the awareness of what technologies are out there, how best to integrate them. They're the challenges.